the 1920s in Johnson City.
The streets would have been full, the sidewalks would have been full, lots of stores, lots of shopping. This was a place to come.
The Roaring '20s is a booming time for the city. Manufacturing is growing and the population doubles in just a decade. At that time, Prohibition made the sale of alcohol illegal, but that didn't stop the flow of booze in towns like Johnson City.
The fact that they were surrounded by these mountains full of moonshiners and illegal alcohol makers, and it's just a logical thing to occur.
According to historians, Johnson City accessed 3 railroads and sat within 30 miles of 2 other state lines. The city's 12 police officers just couldn't keep up.
It will not be long until Johnson City will be stunned by the commission of some horrible crime.
Johnson City native Alan Bridwell decided to dive into Johnson City's history during this era.
We'd heard all of our lives Johnson City references Little Chicago. There'd been a debate, where did that really come from?
Major crime in 1920 Chicago is well documented, and in both cities,
I drink that stuff until the sun goes down.
There's alcohol, there's crime, there's this kind of great growth and development, but it happens very rapidly, and then there's always the railroad.
Tom Lee is an associate professor of history at ETSU. He says some of the stories surrounding this time period are more myth than fact, like the stories of Chicago's most notable mobster, Al Capone, frequenting Johnson City. But during Bridwell's research, he interviewed some of Johnson City's oldest residents alive in the 1920s.
Several said that, yes, they had heard Al Capone was in Johnson City.
Johnson City landmarks like Montrose Quarter often link to Capone, but Bridwell says the stories connect him more often with the John Sevier and Windsor hotels.
The most interesting story that came out was a lady that's father played cards with Al Capone in this story, and really a lot earlier than people thought, around 1924 at the Windsor Hotel.
Bridwell's conclusion?
Either the stories were true, the newspapers validate how wild an area it was, or there was a whole generation of liars in Johnson City.
But for some, there's just not enough proof.
I would say if somebody has the evidence that's going to make the case, you know, I'd be happy to see it.
Though Capone's history in downtown is a little murky, Lee says one thing is for sure.
It makes for interest. It's a way to bring people to town. It's a way to identify a city.
Allie Hines, News Channel 11, in your corner.